Welcome to the very first section of the personality discovery class. In this section, we will be talking about what is personality, and we're going to go through a bit of how that influences who you are and why it is important for you to understand or to know what your personality is. So stick and stay, and let's get through this real quick. So someone might ask the question, what is self-discovery? Now, self-discovery is the process of gaining insight into your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses, values, understanding yourself. Self-discovery is basically the process of beginning to know yourself, to understand yourself, to appreciate yourself, to begin to dive deeply into who you are, to have a good picture of who you are. For most of us, we struggle with our relationships, we struggle with friendships, we struggle with finding the right careers or our life path because we don't know ourselves. And that's because most of us haven't spent time enough with ourselves to understand who we are, to understand how we tick, to understand the things that we value, to understand the things that influence the decisions that we make. So the process of self-discovery is gaining insight into your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses, so that it helps you make better life choices and build meaningful relationships. Why is self-discovery important? I want to make 4 cases for why it is important to discover yourself. The first one is that you are your biggest asset, and I'll say that again. You are your biggest asset. In this life, you are the main character of your life story, and discovering yourself is like allowing yourself to be able to take up that main character role. For most of us, because we don't know ourselves and because we haven't spent time discovering ourselves, we are playing second fiddle in other people's lives. Some of us are even wanting to play main character in other people's lives, and you need to understand that the main character in another person's life is that person, and that role is already taken. And so understanding yourself or beginning to discover yourself gives you the liberty to step into that main character role that has been designated for you in your life story. And that's why it's so important to discover yourself. The other thing I want to add to this is that because you are your biggest asset, you are your biggest resource, you are your biggest investment, it is important for you to discover yourself so that you're able to develop yourself and then begin to use that asset to rewrite the narrative of your life or to rewrite the story of your life. For most of you, you don't know why you have friends that abuse you or friends that take advantage of you, and yet you still hang out with them. You don't know why you're so emotional and you're literally falling in love with everybody that you meet. You don't understand why. You know that you don't want to do that, but you find yourself doing that, and because of that, you're unable to sort of leverage your strength to be able to write the kind of story that you would like to write about your life, right? And so my case, one of my first case of why self-discovery is important is that because you are your biggest asset, and because you are the main character of the story of your life, it is important for you to be able to discover yourself, understand yourself, and then use the things that you have discovered about yourself to rewrite the narrative of your life into the kind of story that you want to read. The second addition that I want to make is that design hints on purpose. Now, self-discovery is like understanding the product design. It gives you a hint of what every product is made for. Now, there is not a single product that has been designed, there is not a single product that has been manufactured that does not have a purpose. Right now, I always use the example of the drinking bottle. So the bottle is designed this way because of the purpose of the bottle. It's supposed to be a portable water bottle that's supposed to carry water around. And then I have, let's say, a paper towel, right? This one also has a purpose for which reason it has been designed in this specific way. Self-discovery is understanding your design so that it can give you a hint of what your purpose is. So if you've been asking yourself, what is my purpose? I would want to know my purpose. Gosh, I don't know my purpose. What is my purpose? If you're asking yourself that question, one of the things that will be most basic for you to do is to go on a journey of self-discovery to understand yourself, to be able to appreciate yourself and understand your design When I talk about your design, I'm talking about how you are made, how you're naturally, how you naturally take things. Are you a very jovial person? Are you a friendly person? Are you a very serious person? Are you a very organized person? Do you love leadership, or do you love followership? Do you love to, mix with people, or you love to be by yourself and introspect, right? Having an idea of all these things can give you a hint of what your purpose is, and that is why it is absolutely necessary that you discover yourself. Okay, the third thing that I want to talk about, or the third case that I want to make for self-discovery, is that having perfect self-discovery brings you into a place of better self-expression. One of the key things that you probably haven't paid attention to in life is self-expression. Now, what do I mean by self-expression? Self-expression basically is how you show up in the world. Now, the reason why this is important is because most of the time we would like to show up a certain way, but we're unable to because we don't know ourselves, and because we don't know ourselves, we cannot control ourselves. And because we cannot control ourselves, we cannot determine how we show up in the world. And we realize that most of the times we're showing up in the world in ways that is not aligned with our inmost desires or our inmost plans, right? I found myself around 23, 22, wanting to be taken serious by people, wanting to have a life of peace and quiet and success, a forward moving life. But then I ended up finding myself crying a lot, being at the mercy of other people, always telling sad stories, wanting people to pity me. And I realized that this does not align with my actual vision, with the vision that I have for my life. This reality that I'm living does not align with the actual vision that I have for my life. And so that meant that I needed to take a step back and then review myself, begin to understand myself. Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Why do I do this? Why do I choose this? Why do I make this decision? Do I have the power to make other decisions that are better for me, right? And so that brought me into a place of knowledge and knowledge of myself that helped me to show up better in the world. When I realized that, okay, my emotions are very strong, I find myself being a very sensitive person, and I found out that I was a very sanguine person. That means that I'm very spontaneous, and I need a lot of planning, and I need a lot of organizing, and I need to contain myself to be able to steer myself in the direction that I want to go. Having that knowledge about myself helped me to rewrite the story of my life. And truth be told, sometimes when I recount some of the old stories of my life, it's almost unbelievable. Not to say that I am a completely changed person, but I think that I now understand myself better, and it helps me show up better in the world. Okay, so that's my third case for self-discovery. Now, the last thing that I want to say, the last case that I want to make for self-discovery, is that self-discovery is important for authenticity. I just spoke about self-expression being how you show up in the world. Now, authenticity is making sure that how you show up in the world aligns with your value system, aligns with the things that you actually believe, right? There are many people that are showing up in the world doing things that do not align with their true nature on the inside, or with the things they actually believe in. If you believe yourself to be, a powerful woman, a successful woman, however, you're showing up in the world and you're procrastinating, you're putting off things that you're supposed to do, you're making excuses for the things that you're supposed to do, that is not authentic, right? If you believe yourself to be a kind person and a genuine person, but then you're showing up in the world and wanting to, meet the standards of the rest of the world and trying to be like other people, and because of that, you're not showing up authentically the way that you should, then there is a problem. You need to understand, why am I doing the things that I do? What is it that has brought me to this place? What are the things that I believe about myself that have brought me to this place? What are the things that I say to myself? What are the things that I think about myself? Typical example, if you're thinking, well, I want to be, or the kind of woman that I see myself being is a woman that is wise and noble and strong, right? However, you find yourself in a situation with a friend that is doing something that you don't like. However, you're not able to stand up to them and sort of have a conversation conversation with them about what they're doing, and sort of make them know that, hey, you're doing this and I don't think that that's right, or you're doing this and I don't think that that's how I want to be treated. You don't set the right boundaries, or you're not putting in the right efforts to show up in the world the way that you should, then you're not being authentic. And so usually you would realize that you're actually doing things, but you don't feel fulfilled, or you feel like something is off or something is wrong, or other people might think that you're doing amazing, but when you go back into your closet, you don't feel great about yourself, or you don't trust yourself, or you're doubting yourself a lot. That's because you're not showing up authentically in the world. And supposing you had a strength that you didn't know about, it would be impossible for you to show up in the world in the strength of that strength, right? And so that's what I mean by authenticity. You need to be able to know yourself, to understand your traumas, to know, the values that have influenced you since you were a child, to know the things that have caused you to become the woman that you are right now, so that you can map out a path for yourself for the future and for where you're going. I don't know if that makes sense. So these are 4 cases for why I think it is absolutely important for you to discover yourself. And I will add a bonus point that in order for any relationship to work, you need 2 people that are willing to actually put in the work and make it work, right? Now, if you're not self-aware, that is, if you have not yet discovered yourself, most of the times what you would realize is that you will have a lot of challenges in relationships with people, be it with your family, with your friends, with your significant other, and you realize that it becomes a challenge, because you don't even know what you want. You don't know what you like. You don't know the things that you're okay with, the things you want to allow, the things you don't want to allow. You don't know them. And so when people are doing things, you would find yourself being offended with people a lot, and yet not being able to work around it or solve the problems. And so you always have a problem with someone, but you don't know what to do about it to solve the problem, And so it's great that you know yourself, so that you understand that I react to this, or I don't like this. And so you're able to communicate effectively to the people that you're in relationships with, so that they're also able to conduct themselves in ways that are helpful, or that are helpful to the relationship that you find yourself in. So that's the last case I would make for self-discovery. It's important for you to know yourself, to become self-aware, because it influences greatly all the relationships that you're in.